Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Naomi Gonzalez of El Paso.
Chair recognizes Representative Gonzalez of El Paso. The amendment is temporarily withdrawn. Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Eiland.
Chair recognizes Representative Eiland.
Mr. Speaker, members, what this amendment would do is simply take the bill and restrict it down to the 24 to 20 week issue. It strikes all the rest of the portions of the bill. It leaves the findings intact, because I know why they're there. Everything else, the RU 486 section would be gone. I don't know that it's the best for us as legislators to be legislating dosage. I think we'll leave that up to the physicians and the pharmacists. It doesn't involve the hospitals, so that section's gone. It simply takes it down to where we would move to ban abortions, all abortions, after the 20th week.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, for what purpose?
Just a quick question.
Does the gentleman yield for a question?
I yield.
The gentleman yields.
I understand some other folks here that have questions prepared to go over this. I just wanted to thank you for this. I realize this is probably maybe your last time at the mic, and I just wanted to thank you for wearing a bright blue, royal blue jacket today. It's kind of a going away present to us.
I got a new jacket. I didn't get the memo that it was
Now,
blue.
we know that your heart was with us on this bill, so thank you.
Mr. Phillips, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield?
For the gentleman yield. The gentleman yields.
So I want to make sure that you're aware that the FDA guidelines are what is set in this bill, other for the medication dosage. Do you understand that? That's not part of the bill.
Right.
So what you're doing is taking out the requirement that doctors that are performing abortions through chemical abortions do not have to follow the FDA guidelines.
I just simply cut that portion out of the bill so that physicians, whatever the practice is, they can practice medicine. And Howard, we didn't have a chance to vote on these. These are all individual bills at one time, and there are portions of the bill that some people support, and other portions of the bill that some people believe are not necessary or maybe have ulterior motives. And so I would like to simply vote on moving it from 24 to 20 weeks, adding that with all the other restrictions and requirements that are currently in the law, and leave the others for some other discussion or some other day.
Right, and so I guess the question I have, though, if you vote for your amendment, that doesn't mean that you're voting for the restriction of 20 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I guess, and you probably heard from a lot of folks, from whether they lean to be pro-life or lean towards pro-choice, but there's a lot of support for this 20-week ban, which is basically what your amendment will leave in place. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I appreciate your support of that issue, but I think the other aspects of this legislation that provide for the safety, and I guess unfortunately because of just the compactness of last session, we kind of put it all onto this bill. I wouldn't have a problem if they were all broken out, but that's what's before us. And so for me, or those of us that want to have those protections, such as saying, doctors, you need to follow the FDA guidelines in that practice, then we don't really need to vote for your amendment then.
Yeah, I think that if there was amendments or tweaks being accepted today or being discussed seriously, for example, if you limited the people that perform abortions or chemical abortions or whatever to OB-GYNs, then you may not have to have some of these other restrictions. This is not my area that I get involved in on the debate every day. I didn't attend the hearings, so I can't tell you about those detailed answers. I do know that I know enough about the 20 weeks versus 24 weeks, and that we could have that as a much more simple, straight-up debate about that issue versus adding the other barriers and layers to the debate or on that issue. And so that's why I bring this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker, Representative Howard, for what purpose? Would the gentleman yield?
I yield.
The gentleman yield. Just to follow up on some of Representative Phillips' questions, the number that we have, the latest that I have from the Department of State Health Services for abortions after 20 weeks, out of the approximately 70,000, 75,000, only about 400 occur. We're talking about a very small number, and from what I've heard, have you not heard the same from the physicians that I've spoken with, the OB-GYNs, that the vast majority of these, if not almost every single one of them, are for medical purposes. Have you heard that as well?
I have heard that. I don't know. I would assume that 20 weeks is a long enough time for someone to decide if they're going to carry a child to term or not, one. And two, you would hope that if those 400 would be for a serious medical condition.
And from what has been reported to me, I have been told that is the case. Do you know of any other situations where the legislature puts in statute prescriptions that a physician is supposed to provide, where we provide the dosage, how it's to be administered? Is there another example of that that you know of?
There's not one that I know of. I didn't sit on the committee to hear specific responses to that. And that's why I think it's unfortunate with not having some amendments go on the bill which could address some of these particular issues. Like, there may be a reason that a OB-GYN wanted to prescribe a different dosage.
Well, would you not agree that there are studies that continually go on with medications and healthcare delivery that indeed you can actually determine that there is a more appropriate dosage or a way to deliver, and that might not be what is in statute, and that we would be tying the hands of physicians from prescribing what's medically appropriate if indeed that it does occur, if we have something in statute?
Yes, and that's why we are locking in Texas statute, in Texas law, that would have to pass a bill and to be signed by the governor to change if the American College that's referenced in the bill, if they change their position from January 1st, 2013, if it changes on January 1st, 2014, we would be locked in to the current items. And so,
if there's a better method of delivery.
Yeah, and it's because if somebody came and said, okay, or any subsequent revision to that, I think that would be a smart way to handle it, but that's not an option today, apparently.
So what it appears to me you're trying to do, if this is correct, is that you're trying to find a way to establish some commonality here among all the folks that are on this floor, the people in the gallery and the people we represent, who do have some common agreement around limiting when abortion should be performed, and 20 weeks is something that people can at least, not everybody agrees with that, but there is more agreement there. We could have some commonality. The other parts of this bill, there's more politics to that rather than good policy. It seems to be interfering with the doctor-patient relationship, creating barriers to accessing safe, legal medical procedures, but that we could come together on this part of it, that if we really wanted to have policy that drove what happened with limiting when abortions can occur,
Right.
that this would be the thing that we could come together around. Is that what you're trying to suggest and propose here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a very good amendment.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes, for what purpose?
For a question for the gentleman.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes.
Gentleman yields.
Representative Eiland, just one question, and just kind of dovetailing into what Representative,
Howard,
yes, Representative Howard was talking about before, is it fair to say that your amendment, literally strips away the other parts of the bill, but also strips away all these political areas that we can't agree on and focuses on the one thing, which is life, that all these folks that are presumably up here in the gallery supporting, and it focuses on that point, which is the 20-week ban?
yes,
Okay. And it does nothing more than that, which is preserve life in accordance with this 20-week ban.
correct.
Thank you, Representative Eiland.
Ms. Giddings, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Gentleman yield.
Representative Eiland, I think you might have heard the exchange that I had with Representative Menendez about the testimony that had come before the State Affairs Committee. Did you hear that?
Yes,
Okay. And so it's a little bit odd that in terms of us trying to provide more safety for women, that those persons who are in that position, in positions that deal with medicine and the health care of women, where they are representing state or national organizations, none of them were in support of this. Are you aware of that?
right, of those portions of the bill that I cut out.
Yes. The Texas Hospital Association, for instance, said that Section 2...
Representative Stevenson raises a point of order. The gentleman's time has expired. The point of order is well taken and sustained. Chair recognizes Representative Laubenberg in opposition.
Respectful members, this amendment pretty much guts the bill, so I move to table.
Chair recognizes Representative Eiland to close on his amendment.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'll close, and this does not gut the bill. What this amendment does is simply narrow it down to limiting abortions to 20 weeks as opposed to 24 weeks, leaving these other issues to be fleshed out and discussed
Madam Speaker,
over
What purpose,
the
Ms.
next
Giddings?
2 years.
will the gentleman yield for a couple of questions?
Yes.
Do you yield for questions? The gentleman yields.
Representative Eiland, are you aware that in the state of Florida, the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine did a study having to do with medical procedures in office-based settings?
I know that study has been discussed.
Yes. It's a study that has been done, and would it surprise you to say that they concluded that the procedure that was done in office-based settings with the greatest risk was cosmetic procedures that are performed under general anesthesia?
Yes.
So we have had a number of organizations. Texas Hospital Association they do not believe that the physicians will be admitted with hospital privileges under Section 2 of this bill. Are you aware of that?
So I am aware of that, and I believe the testimony was, and what I heard is they don't want to get involved in this decision and what this may bring on to those hospitals.
And while it is that we could make some changes in terms of the regulations as it relates to abortion, if we were to put in place measures that created basically an absolute ban, I think that would be declared unconstitutional. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's legitimate concerns by people with if you put up some additional barriers so that you limit access so much to a legal procedure, whether you like it or not, that if you put up all of these barriers, that it may be unconstitutional. And so I think that going from 24 weeks to 20 weeks is probably constitutional because other states have done that without these other limiting issues and barriers, even though they may be good intentioned or not good intentioned. But I think they're not ready yet. And if they are, for example, there's no consideration to say, look, if the physician performing the abortion does not have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles, then why couldn't that physician make arrangements with a physician with admitting privileges within 30 miles. If the goal is to take care of the woman in case there's a problem, that seems to be a way to handle it, but that's not allowed in this bill. And so there's measures that could be taken to make this bill a more workable bill, but they're not being allowed to go on.
Well, I think you're absolutely right with that. I believe that all the members of this House are concerned about making sure that women are as safe and have the best care possible. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
And there are other ways that we could ensure that are not included in this bill and are not spoken to in this bill. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, for what purpose?
will the representative yield for questions?
Yes.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman yields.
Representative Eiland, as I understand your amendment would keep the fetal pain portion of the bill intact, correct?
Yes.
And so essentially what the amendment would do is restrict that an abortion would not be permitted after the 20-week period. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that was the intent of the bill, correct?
That is correct.
I stand with you, having been someone who voted for the bill. I stand with you in support of this amendment because I also believe, as you do, that this does not gut the bill or its intent and helps preserve the life of an unborn child in a way that I think is responsible.
Thank you.
Representative Eiland sends up an amendment. Representative Laubenberg moves to table. The question occurs on the motion to table. It's a record vote, members. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Representative Laubenberg voting aye. Show Representative Eiland voting nay. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? There being 85 ayes, 52 nays, the motion to table prevails.